What's going on, and welcome back. This is kind of weird for me right now because I'm used to getting up really early in the morning to film. I like filming early because, you know, everybody's still asleep. There's no traffic driving by or anything like that outside. But it's almost 10 o'clock at night and I'm just now turning the camera on. This is kind of strange. It's because we had a family gathering that we had to attend to today. So I've been a little busy today. So I'm just barely now getting to filming. So yeah, this is kind of, I haven't filmed at night in like a long time. So this is a little bit different for me. So the title of the video is, I have a secret and I'm going to tell you what it is, right? It's not really a secret. It's more mainly, I just didn't know what to call this video. It's mainly, I think it's something that I've never talked about on here, I don't think, or I've never mentioned before, I'm sure. But check this out. So where I live, right behind my house is a prison. Yes. There's a prison back there, like a full-blown prison. So let me see if I can paint a picture for you guys. Right behind my house, there's a row of houses and then a street, and on the other side of that street is a prison. And you would think, oh, that's kind of scary, right? Living that close to a prison. At first, when I first moved here, I was kind of like, because like you can't see it, like right, you can't see the prison from my front yard because there's houses there. Remove the houses and you're able to see the prison. It's about maybe 2 blocks from here. It's just like right there. But when I first moved here, I was kind of like, it kind of like threw me off a little bit to live that close to a prison, right? But it's not scary. You know, it's not as scary as you think, because like the people that they have in there, they're not like I want to say hardened criminals or whatever. There's no murders in there. Okay, if you're thinking that there's no murders in there, there are people that have gotten caught with drugs and, you know, that sort of thing. So it's not like a big time prison, but it's a pretty good sized prison, right? There's actual houses that are sharing, how can I put this, dude? So where the prison's at, in the back of the prison, that's where they let, you know, all the inmates out to like get their exercise or whatever, you know, after breakfast, after lunch or whatever. And they have this big fence. I'll put a picture right here somewhere so you can see it. That's the prison. And they got this big fence, right, with like razor wire on top or whatever, so they can't escape when they're out there. Obviously they have guards, and they have like guard towers, and they have a couple of guards in the towers with like rifles or whatever. You're probably thinking, God, that's kind of scary. Nah, not really, but not for me. But there was these empty lots right behind the prison, and now there's houses there. So what's separating these people's backyards from the prison is the fence, the prison fence with the razor wire. Literally, like, those people are like looking out their back door, and their backyard is the prison, and the only thing that's separating them from the prison is this fence with the razor wire. Now, that would make me really uncomfortable, right? I mean, that would make anybody uncomfortable. Apparently not everybody, because there's people that live right there. I've driven by the prison, right, and there's another little neighborhood that's behind this one. I think, you know, and that's the thing that's always throwing me off, is like, if there was ever a prison break, we would be the first ones to get taken hostage by the prisoners. No. It's that other little neighborhood that's right there by the prison that would be taken hostage first. Those houses that are right there. But I've driven by there when the prisoners were out, like during their break at lunch or whatever, and they're like this, hanging on the fence, looking into the backyards of these people. Hell no, dude. Hell no. Like I said, they're not, these guys that are locked in, they're not, like, mostly like, cause they got busted with like drugs and stuff. God damn. Did you hear that? Dude, my son just, dude, that's the thing. That's why I like to film in the morning. Because everybody's asleep. By everybody, I mean all the neighbors and my son. Now that it's nighttime, he's in and out, in and out. It's kind of throwing me off. So, like, no, dude, that would make me like really uncomfortable. Having my backyard the prison. I mean, it's bad enough where I'm at. It's like right there, but having your backyard as the prison itself, no, dude. And you think, you probably think it's kind of scary, right? Like, living that close, but no, dude. This is actually a pretty quiet neighborhood for the most part. The neighbors over here, they're loud with their vehicles or whatever, but for the most part, I live in a really quiet neighborhood. There's nothing really. You would think, oh, you're on the bad side of town, right? Because the prison. No. It's a pretty nice neighborhood. There's police officers that live in this neighborhood. There's been some instances where things have happened. Where I was here at the house one night and I got a phone call. It was about 9:30 at night. And my brother called me, my stepbrother called me, and he was like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, I'm watching TV. He's like, hey, make sure you lock your doors because there's a couple of guys are running from the cops and they're in your area. I was like, oh shit. So sure enough, I look outside, there's a helicopter flying above around the neighborhood looking for these guys. I was like, oh shit. They caught him. They caught him. That was one of the things that's happened here. Another night, I was here at the house. Not at this house. This was back when I used to have the old house. And a buddy of mine showed up. It was like around 11 or so at night. He called me. He's like, hey, are you still awake? I was like, yeah, dude, I'm still up. He's like, come outside real quick. So I went outside. And he was standing there with a 12-pack of Budweiser. And he's like, hey, let's sit outside and drink a beer with me or whatever. He goes, check this out. So I was like, all right. So we're sitting out there in my front yard drinking a beer, 11 o'clock at night. He's like, there's a couple of guys are running from the cops. I was like, again, dude. And so we're sitting out here in the front yard drinking a beer and we're watching the cops up and down the neighborhood. I'm thinking, man, please, as we're sitting out there drinking, the beers are kicking in. I'm thinking, oh, please let them guys come to this yard. They don't come to the yard, right? We're all ready or whatever. But no, they ended up catching the guys, but it was crazy. Like cops driving up and down the neighborhood, drones flying around looking for these people, right? They caught them. But other than those two things happening, it's a pretty quiet neighborhood, pretty safe, really safe. I'll tell you how safe. So, there's been times when I couldn't find my car keys. I was like, man, where's my car keys at, right? Looking for them. Couldn't find them. Opened the front door, and my keys are still in the keyhole. I had left them there overnight. I was like, oh shit. I guess when I came home, I unlocked the door, and I pushed the door open, and then I shut it, and I never took the keys out of the door. And that's where they stayed all night long. And I was like, dude, I was thinking, oh my God, dude, somebody could have came in or something, right? Or they could have took the keys out, got in my car and took off. I was asleep. Shit like that happens. That's twice. I've done that twice. or I forgot the keys in the door. It's like, golly, dude, I can't be doing that, right? Another time at the old house, and this was recently, this was at the new house. At the old house, I had a front door and a back door. And the front door and the back door were on the same side of the house. So if you go out the front door, you're in the front yard. If you go out the back door, you're in the front yard. It was weird. But the back door, if you didn't shut it right, it wouldn't close right, and it would stay open. Right? You could just go push it and it would open up. When my son was younger, he was out there playing and he came in and he shut the door. And I didn't think about it. So that night we went to bed and the back door was kind of like right next to like where my bedroom was at. And I went to bed, and then the next morning I was like, there's light hitting my face. I opened my eyes. Dude, my back door was completely open. It was completely open. I was like, holy shit. I got up and I looked around the house. I was like, everything was where it was supposed to be. But I guess when he came in, he didn't shut the door right. And sometime in the middle of the night, the door swung open. And it stayed open all night, dude. I was like, oh my God. Like, anything could have happened, right? In a bad neighborhood. But like I said, it's pretty quiet here. Pretty quiet. And the prisoners over there, really, there's nothing really to be scared of. Where I work during the summer, every once in a while, it hasn't happened in a while, but every once in a while, they'll send like about 6 or 7 of them to go out there with us to help us. And they'll walk around where I'm at. They're picking up trash or whatever. And while they're out there around lunchtime, I have to drive to the sheriff's department to go pick up their lunch so they can go back to our yard, sit in our break room or whatever and have lunch. And there was a few times that I sat in there with them and I ate lunch with them, right? And I got to talking to these guys, and they're pretty nice guys. As a matter of fact, they're probably not even in prison anymore. These are the guys that they'll send out there that they're fixing to get out. They got like a month or two, or like a year up to like a month or two or whatever. They're going to get out. So they're kind of like the trustees. And I sat there and I talked to them, and they're pretty nice guys. They were just like I said, they got busted with drugs or whatever, and as I'm talking to them, they're telling me like, you don't want to end up where we're at. Be cool. Stay straight. Don't mess up or whatever. And this isn't a place where you want to be, right? They gave me the whole speech. So good guys for the most part. They're just like us, except they got caught and we haven't. That's the only difference. But yeah, it's like a pretty quiet neighborhood, but I wanted to share with you that in my backyard, pretty much, there's a prison back there. And you think it's scary, but it's not. And I don't think I've ever mentioned it because it's never crossed my mind. It's always been there. It just became a normal part of life for me, as well as all of us living on this side of town, right? So, for the most part, it's a pretty quiet neighborhood, pretty safe. Obviously, if I've left my keys in the door twice, and my car hadn't got stolen, or the door's been wide open, I think that's happened a couple of times, and nothing's ever happened. But now, pretty safe here. It's pretty safe. Got cameras, outside of my house. Whenever somebody comes in, my phone goes off. The camera goes off. The camera warns, whoever's coming into the yard that, hey, you're being filmed or whatever, recorded, filmed. That's a word, right? Filmed. I'm not filming with like film. It's digital, but you get what I'm saying. Somebody tries to break in, oh shit, the alarms go blazing. They're like blaring loud, man. The alarms are freaking loud here, so I feel pretty safe for the most part. I don't think, and knock on wood, I don't think they'll be a prison break here, because the guys that are in this prison, they're probably serving some, I want to say 5 years tops, maybe 10, and then they're out. Like I said, drugs, beating up their spouses or something, right? Nothing major. I mean, beating up their spouse is probably major, but you know, it's not like they killed somebody, you know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was interesting because it's something I've never talked about, you know, living by a prison. I don't know how you guys would feel about that, or if you would even consider moving into a neighborhood where there's a prison like right there. It's not scary, but what would bother me, like where these houses are at, their backyard is the prison. So anyways, thanks for watching. It's already after 10, and I'm gonna go play a video game, and I'll see you on the next one.